Good afternoon. This is the Thursday edition of E&E Weekly. I am Joycelyn Elakeche Ada. Our top stories. Brent oil recovers some ground to trade at $40.75 per barrel by late yesterday, Wednesday in London. Nigeria asks a Milan court to order Eni and Royal Dutch Shell to pay $1.092 billion as an immediate advance payment for damages in one of the oil industry's biggest ever corruption trials. Saudi Arabia plans to keep oil production steady despite recent slump in prices. These stories and more after this short break. You are watching Energy and Environment Weekly. Brent oil recovered some ground to trade at $40.75 per barrel by late yesterday, Wednesday in London. Crude in London had tumbled below $40 a barrel for the first time since late June. New York price also plunged with faltering demand and weaker equities undermining market sentiment. Both Brent and West Texas Intermediate crude futures slid on Tuesday to their lowest levels in nearly 3 months. Market signal points to more downside risk for oil prices. Brent's crude break below $40 a barrel follows 2 months of the global oil benchmark holding largely between $42 and $45 a barrel. The coronavirus pandemic is still raging, and Bank of America's Merrill Lynch said it will take 3 years for global oil demand to recover from COVID-19, assuming there is a vaccine or cure. Meanwhile, only 4 of 10 Asian refiners surveyed by Bloomberg said they would be trying to buy more Saudi Arabian crude after it cut pricing for October as consumption remained below pre-coronavirus levels. Adding to worries over China's recovery hitting a roadblock, tensions are rising between the U.S. and the world's largest importer. U.S. President Donald Trump said that he intends to curb the U.S. economic relationship with China, threatening to punish any American company that creates jobs overseas and forbid those that do business in China from winning federal contracts. The misfortune that began for all 2 weeks ago may not have run its full course yet, as the resurgent dollar again provided the fuel for a sell-off that took both the crude benchmarks below the key $40 support. London traded Brent crude, the global benchmark for oil, settled down to $2.23 or 5.3% at $39.78 per barrel after a session low at $39.31. Brent lost 5.6% last week. Just 2 weeks ago, oil prices hit their highest since March in a slow but persistently rally that propelled WTI to $43.78 per barrel and Brent to $46.53. Let's take a look at today's figures on world oil prices. Moving on, Saudi Arabia plans to keep oil production steady despite a recent slump in prices, fearing any bigger cuts would lead rivals in OPEC to increase supply. The kingdom has led OPEC and other producers such as Russia, known together as OPEC Plus, in slashing output in the face of the coronavirus pandemic. The country fears that if it cuts more output to support prices, other countries will take advantage and produce greater amounts, jeopardizing the unity of the OPEC Plus group that enacted record supply cuts in April as demand collapsed. Traders are growing increasingly anxious about the pandemic's long-lasting impact on oil consumption, while reported production from certain OPEC countries such as the UAE, Iraq, and Nigeria in recent months has been higher than stipulated under the OPEC Plus deal. Saudi Arabia believes that the market sell-off in recent days has been exacerbated by the turmoil in equity markets and the strengthening of the US dollar. Brent crude oil recovered from below $20 a barrel in April to a 6-month high near $46 a barrel in August, as the cuts took effect and demand picked up after government lockdown eased. But signs of renewed demand weakness in the US and India and slower crude imports by China have combined with a rise in coronavirus cases elsewhere to spark fears that the oil market's recovery has stalled. Global oil demand is still down by almost 10% year-on-year, as many economies are mired in recession and car and airline travel remain depressed. Saudi Arabia agreed a US-backed deal in April with global producers to slice 9.7 million barrels a day of global supply. They tapered the cuts in August to 7.7 million barrels per day, or about 8% of global demand. Saudi Arabia has publicly put pressure on OPEC members, Iraq and Nigeria, to comply with their own promises, as it fears the UAE's overproduction is undermining that stance. Iraq, Nigeria and the UAE have said they will compensate for their earlier overproduction by cutting additional barrels in the coming months. Saudi Arabia does not want to undermine these undertakings by backing further cuts at this stage. Meanwhile, Saudi Arabia's King Salman bin Abdulaziz Al Saud and Russia President Vladimir Putin both expressed satisfaction with the implementation of the OPEC Plus crude oil output deal and discussed ways to address the global economic slump on a telephone call on Tuesday. According to a statement posted on the Kremlin website, the call was initiated by King Salman and comes ahead of a key OPEC Plus joint ministerial monitoring committee meeting on September the 17th, which is expected again to focus on compliance. The JAMC is co-chaired by Saudi Arabia and Russia, and both sides expressed satisfaction with the progress of the implementation of the OPEC Plus agreement, which made it possible to stabilize the situation on world energy markets in general. Saudi Arabia and Russia agreed to further closely coordinate their work on production cuts, trade and investment. Saudi and Russia leaders have also discussed joint ways to overcome negative consequences of the coronavirus pandemic on the world economy and finances, the statement said. And on refineries, in a recent interview with a local television station, the Group Managing Director of the Nigeria National Petroleum Corporation, NNPC, Malam Melekeri, revealed that his government is working on a model of operating refineries whereby the government would be a minority shareholder. Malam Kerry revealed that the nation's 4 refineries are currently not in operation. According to him, there will be more scrutiny of shareholders, which will make it more efficient to operate. The GMD explained that the reason why the refineries are shut down is because pipelines feeding crude oil into the refineries are badly damaged. He He also said the refineries have 4 years worked sporadically due to chronic underinvestment. It is important to note that the total capacity of the 4 refineries in Nigeria when operating optimally would produce only 450,000 barrels per day. Meanwhile, Nigeria consumes a lot more than that per day. The GMD said before their total shutdown, the 4 refineries had been producing less than 10% of the country's fuel demand. Meanwhile, despite the huge sums of money being spent on revamping the refineries, they still could not operate below their joint production capacity, which is 445,000 barrels per day. This has made Nigeria to depend completely on importation of petroleum products. With the present removal of subsidy and the deregulation of the downstream sector, the market is now open to all marketers. We'll take a short break. More energy stories when we come back. Stay with us. Welcome. This is the Thursday edition of Energy and Environment Weekly. More on energy, Nigeria has asked a Milan court to order Eni and Royal Dutch Shell to pay $1.092 billion as an immediate advance payment for damages in one of the oil industry's biggest ever corruption trials. After hearing into corruption case linked to Eni and Shell's 2011 acquisition of the OPL 245 field, lawyer for the federal government, Mr. Lucio Lucia, called for a guilty verdict and an advance payment ahead of any broader damages package set by a court at a later date. Mr. Lucia did not specify how much Nigeria was seeking in damages overall, but said the disputed deal had deprived the country of profit all, adding these are massive amounts. The lawyer said that calculated under 2 different scenarios, the profit that had been lost amounted to $4.5 billion and $5.9 billion respectively. The long-running bribery case revolves around the purchase of the OPL 245 offshore field, some 150 kilometers off the Niger Delta, for about $1.3 billion from Malibu, a company owned by former Nigerian oil minister Dan Etete. Prosecutors allege that about $1.1 billion of that was ship-owned off to politicians and middlemen, half of it to Etete himself. Shell says the 2011 agreement was a settlement of long-standing litigation following the previous allocation of the block by the Nigerian government to Shell and Malibu. Etete, Eni, Shell, and the managers accused in the Milan court case, including Eni CEO Claudio Descalzi, have all denied any wrongdoing. Eni said in a statement on Wednesday that the purchase price for OPL 245 was congruous and reasonable, considering the value of the field and investment needed to bring it into production. In July, prosecutors in the case asked for Eni and Shell to be fined and some of their present and former executives, including Eni's Descalzi, to be jailed. They also requested the confiscation of a total of $1.029 billion from all the defendants in the case, the equivalent of the bribes alleged to have been paid. At an ongoing hearing into the corruption that allegedly took place during the acquisition of the Malibu offshore oil field, Lucio Lucius, lawyer for the Nigerian government, said the advance payment will be part of a larger damage package to be decided by the court. The federal government alleged that the $1.1 billion paid by the companies were ship-owned by government officials and Dan Etete. In July, the prosecutors urged the court to fine Eni and Shell and some of their executives, including Claudio Del Calzi, Eni CEO, on April 9, 1998. The federal military government awarded OPL 245 to OPL 245 to Malibu Oil and Gas Limited, which was said to be owned mainly by Mohamed Abacha, son of the Sani Abacha, and Etete, who was the petroleum minister at the time. And on July 2, 2011, President Olusegun Obasanjo revoked Malibu's license and assigned the oil block to Shell without a public bid. Malibu went to court, but ownership was reverted to it in 2006 after it reached an out-of-court settlement with the federal government. Shell fought back and commenced arbitration against Nigeria, but when President Goodluck Jonathan came to power in 2010, the controversy appeared to have been resolved, with Shell and Eni agreeing to buy the oil block from Malibu for $1.1 billion. In January, a Federal Capital Territory FCT High Court in Gwagwalada issued a warrant of arrest against Dan Etete, former Minister of Petroleum, over his alleged involvement in the $1.1 billion Malibu oil deal. The next hearing in the trial is scheduled for September 21st, when the defense is due to present its case. Guiding price bands for the sale of petrol at filling stations will no longer be released by government in Nigeria. All marketers are now free to fix prices. The government, through the Petroleum Product Pricing Regulatory Agency, had commenced what it called a petrol pricing regime, where it releases bands showing upper and lower limits for the pump price of petrol monthly. It did this for about 3 months. Some operators had faltered the activity, then, as they claimed, that did not speak well of a deregulated downstream oil sector. Then, the PPPRA failed to issue price guidelines for the months of August and September. It, however, declared on Tuesday that it would not provide such guiding prices anymore, adding that fuel deregulation was now in force. The implication of this decision is that petrol price would henceforth be determined by the forces of demand and supply and the international cost of crude oil. The PPPRA will therefore assume the role of the regulator to guide against profiteering, as every petrol dealer is now free to source for the product and fix their prices. So far, foreign exchange challenges and prevailing economic uncertainty have been preventing all marketers from resuming fuel import. But before now, petrol importation into the country was solely done by the Pipelines Product Marketing Company, a subsidiary of the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation, NNPC. However, other marketers are now free to also import petrol. There are now plans to merge the PPPRA and the Petroleum Equalization Fund. Meanwhile, the Nigerian Economic Summit Group have commended the government's actions at deregulating fuel and electricity prices. It urged that proper policies, processes, and procedures be put in place to ensure that all the reforms beyond price and deregulation necessary to facilitate the smooth functioning of both the fuel and electricity markets are effectively and conclusively implemented. The group said adequate communication to stakeholders and the general public on the benefits derivable from these actions must also be regularly carried out. And Germany and Niger Republic have entered into strategic partnership to establish a hydrogen exploration project that will benefit West African nations. German Federal Research Minister Anja Kaluzek and her Nigerian counterpart Yehuza Sadesu agreed last month on a package of measures to expand the hydrogen strategic partnership into West Africa. This hydrogen partnership will work through the Joint Research Center and the West African Science Service Center on Climate Change and Adapted Land Use, which is known as WASCO, which was established by the German Federal Ministry of Education and Research in 2019 as part of the German federal government's Africa strategy. A total of 11 African countries, Nigeria, Benin, Burkina Faso, Cape Verde, Ivory Coast, Gambia, Ghana, Mali, Senegal, and Togo are integrated into the WASCO network, and each country pursues regionally adapted research priorities based on different aspects of sustainable land management under the influence of land use and climate change. The BMBF has assured continuation of the graduate school program and a commitment to hydrogen as an energy carrier for the future. The WASCO network has also launched a research biogas laboratory at Lomé University meant to deepen knowledge on climate change and its impact on land use in West Africa. Germany wants to intensify the cooperation between her country and West African countries through the WASCO network. Also, last month, the BMBF launched the broader H2 Atlas Africa project in partnership with a consortium of various African research institutions to explore the potential of green hydrogen production from the vast renewable energy sources on the African continent. The Southern African Science Service Center for Climate Change and Adaptive Land Management, a partnership between Angola, Botswana, Namibia, South Africa, Zambia, and Germany, will be doing exactly the same project established where hydrogen projects would be visible in the southern part of Africa. And just a few years ago, natural gas was hailed as vital for the transition towards an economy that runs on renewable energy. But sentiment is changing and fuel is going the same way as coal, its dirtier sibling shown by governments, utilities, and investors. The cancellation of the giant Atlantic Coast Pipeline in the US and Ireland's decision to scrap backing for an import terminal this summer are the latest signs that gas is falling out of favor with everyone from regulators to asset managers. As countries intensify efforts to meet climate obligations, the fuel used for heating, cooking, and power production is poised to lose out to solar, wind, private and public energy efficiency measures. While natural gas only emits about half the carbon dioxide of coal, fluorine and methane leaks have tarnished its reputation across the globe, according to Nick Stanbury, head of commodity research at Legal and General Investment Management Limited in London. Many investors are also shying away to instead allocate funds to projects aligned with objectives of Paris Agreement, he said. More than 1,200 institutions managing $14 trillion in assets have committed to divest from fossil fuels, up from 181 managing to $50 billion 5 years ago. According to a report from Fossil Free, an international environmental movement in the US, environmental opposition helped boost the cost for the Atlantic Coast Pipeline to almost double to $8 billion this year. About $10 billion of gas pipeline projects in the US got scrapped, even as gas envoys political support from President Donald Trump's administration. European politicians are now debating whether to pressure the giant Nord Stream 2 pipeline from Russia to Germany, not for environmental reasons, but for geopolitical ones. That debate also raises the question of whether the pipeline would be going ahead anyway if so many billions hadn't already been invested. And that's our package for today. Thanks for watching E&E Weekly. I am Joycelyn Elakeche Ada. Keep a date with us next Tuesday as we bring you fresh stories from the energy and environment sector. Thanks for watching.